How are you, people? It's the Welsh Whisperer. That's me.
So what we're going to do is we just kind of talk about some different aspects of your music. Some questions about touring and stuff like that, and kind of how the past year has impacted on, your ability to do music and tour and things like that.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. So I think the first question would be is, when it comes to sort of influences, who have been sort of your main inspirations and influences for writing music?
Right, so I've been asked this a few times, right? And I think people are quite surprised with the answers because they're not normally people that they've heard of. So I started doing this about, maybe 6 years ago now. And the whole reason I started it was I met a guy from a place called Portmarnock outside Dublin. And his brother had been in university or college or something down in Cork, and he came back singing this song called My Little Honda 50. And it's all about it goes like, my little Honda 50, she's rapid and she's nifty, she'll do 150 on a windy day, stuff like that. So, and that was the first type of music, like country folk, kind of not really kind of comedy, but just like fun music that I ever heard. And as soon as I heard stuff like that, I thought, oh my god, I love it. So I was listening to it loads, and I wanted to do it myself. So the guy who recorded that version is a guy called Seamus Moore, and he is one of the people who I probably, who's inspired me most, because he's actually made a really successful living and sold tens of thousands of records on songs about like diggers and diesel and trucks and just stupid stuff like that. So I thought that's amazing. And one thing I noticed straight away was, the rural crowd in Ireland is a similar crowd to what we have in rural Wales. So I thought, how come nobody's doing this here? So, so people like that, Seamus Moore, another guy big out in Ireland, Richie Kavanagh. He's one of the most famous musical kind of country comedy singers from Ireland. And he's sung a few funny songs like the Chicken song, but don't show that to the kids. It's a bit rude. But it got banned. I think it got banned in the UK off the radio, that one, because he makes chicken noises and makes them sound like a swear word. You Google it, you can find out. People like that, yeah. But a lot of this kind of music that I do now, country, folk, kind of Celtic country, I call it. But I don't know if anyone else knows what I mean. But it's sort of it's not country. It's not like American country music, but it's a kind of mixture of country and folk music, and it's really big in Ireland, and it's much more mainstream in Ireland. So that's why the influences come from over there. But, maybe one day we'll have more of it in Wales. I don't know.
We've had a recent obsession here with Richie Kavanagh. Listen to that. We kind of had like Stay With the Johnny on repeat for about 6 months.
He's an absolute legend. And a lot of people actually have heard of Richie Kavanagh. I was surprised because when I found out about Richie Kavanagh, I thought, oh my God, like, why isn't this huge in Wales? Because especially in the country, because it's a similar sort of people he's singing about rally driving, chicken, sheep, hens, farming songs. He thought, this should be huge. And I found out, actually, Richie Kavanagh used to come and tour in Wales, and he played before my time now. Well, not before I was born, but when I was a child. He played in Theatr Felinfach in Ceredigion, and he used to do a couple of nights there on the trot with a full band and guests, and sold out. It was amazing, apparently. So I was gutted that I missed those days. And Seamus Moore and stuff, they used to tour in Wales a little bit. And there is a history of more serious folk bands coming to Wales, like the Wolf Tones and stuff used to play up in Pentleen. I was told, I missed all this, but in the 90s and stuff, they used to play all over the place. So those are the days.
When I interviewed Liz Saville Roberts, it must be about a year and a half ago now, she mentioned that she used to go and see the Wolf Tones and stuff on tour when they used to do Wales. And I remember David Ewan used to do a lot of like opening and stuff for them as well.
Yeah, he did. David Ewan did a thing called Celtfest in Cardiff, in the old CIA, I don't know what it's called now, the arena in Cardiff. So they used to do it on international days. Again, it was a little bit before my time. I was probably about 10 or something. But yeah, I used to have the Wolf Tones, and David Ewan would open for them. And that's amazing, But they all used to come here. Not so much anymore. Wales is kind of dipped off the circuit a little bit. I mean, those guys have got older as well, Wolf Tones. They're probably only doing much bigger shows. I was lucky enough to see them actually when Ireland was celebrating 100 years of independence. I think it must have been, 2016. they played in a place called the Key, I think it's called the Key West or the City West Hotel, just outside Dublin. It was a hell of a show. So we went over to see that. That was great. That's the only time I've ever seen him, but I'm a big fan of the Wolf Tones, yeah.
Why do you think it's dropped off in Wales then? So it's like if the Wolf Tones don't tour and come here at all, really. And
yeah, I don't know. There used to be festivals like Cnapan Festival in Fostrasol down in Ceredigion there. They used to attract a lot of international folk bands, so not just from Ireland, but from all over Europe, I think. But I don't know. There are less festivals on that scale, I guess. Oh, we've got a dog in here. He's right. There are less festivals on that scale now. I don't know if the whole when Davide One and those guys were really in their prime touring wise, probably in the 90s, maybe they were touring with a full band all the time to quite big crowds, and I think that was probably a peak time for that kind of Welsh. Well, almost like Welsh rebel music in a way. It's probably the closest thing that Wales has really got to that kind of genre of music. So maybe it was the peak time, and the Wolf Tones were probably at their peak of touring during that time, perhaps as well. Because they live all over the world now. Anyway, the Wolf Tones, I think some of them live in America, if not all of them. So they're less likely to be coming down and playing village halls in Wales now.
Yeah. So your process of creating music, how do you find those sort of inspirations for like certain songs? Because like on the previous album, you've wrote about songs about like bins and stuff like that, bin men and stuff like that. So what inspires you, or what makes you feel like that's how and how do you create that music? How do you go from the idea in your head to then a record?
Yeah. It all comes from the idea. So I'll always get an idea by speaking to someone or seeing something. Like, for example, you mentioned the bins there. I see the bin man come in, and if he doesn't take my bin, I'm upset. And so that's why I wrote the song, because it was annoying because I had too much recycling. So that was just stupid, like they're all pretty stupid. But and I had a song called The B Road Bandit, which I wrote when I was just literally flying around the B roads. And I thought, there's something here. Sometimes you'll meet someone or someone will say something like Nín Bélo Nawr, right? One of the most popular songs probably that I recorded. I was doing a night in a place called Llanina Arms Hotel in a place called Llanarth, is in Ceredigion. And it was a night there. There's people used to put on these country nights there, and John O'Callaghan were headlining. And I was supporting them, and it was a great night. Big crowd, loads of people were having a great time. And outside then, I went for a little bit of fresh air, and a man out there was rolling a cigarette. And he said, as he was rolling it and offering one to me, he said, "Wyt ti'n gallu bailo? Like, can you make a bale?" And what he meant was like, are you going to bale this tobacco? Like, you would wrap a bale of hay? And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. So the whole time, I stayed in a hotel that night, and I was lying there in bed thinking, bailo, wyt ti'n gallu bailo? Can you bail? How can I got to do something with it? And then Nín Bélo Nawr. And then I was driving home the next day. It was a couple hours in the car, and I was there, Nín Bélo Nawr, and it just came. And then, so that was a lucky one, it came pretty fast. But sometimes, mind you, have an idea and you think it's going to be good, and it's terrible. And they go so far as to record them, and you think when you play them live, this is going to be huge, and people just doze off halfway through. It just happens. So it's a bit of potluck. But the ideas generally come from people I meet, or things I hear people say, like good thing. I didn't invent good thing. It gets said a lot, especially in Southwest Wales. People say, "Oh, good thing. Yeah, like that's bloody good." Yeah. So but I just kind of, owned it and made it my own. But yeah, I get a lot of ideas from different people that I meet and places that I go. And that's the whole beauty of it, because the more you travel around these rural, quite isolated communities, the more people you meet and the more different people are, and you think, oh wow, and then you pick up more ideas from them, and it all just goes like that. So being stuck at home for long periods of time, you do lose a bit of that. Okay, you got time to do other stuff, but you do miss getting out and about and chatting to people. Yeah,
I think that's the thing. A lot of like different communities of Wales have got completely different slang terms and dialects and stuff like that. And the way people speak from one village to the next is completely different.
Yeah, it's mad for such a small country. It's really actually quite diverse, and even within counties and within even like within a valley, people saying different things at different ends of the place. But and as well, obviously between the north and the south. But people often say to me, like, they can't believe that I would be popular in North Wales, for example, because I'm from South West Wales, and so they think, they're not compatible. But actually, from experience, I found straight away that rural communities in Penllyn or Anglesey or anywhere around there were actually pretty much the same as Pembrokeshire, Ceredigion. Okay, the same types of people, yeah. So different sense of humor and different lingo, but the same types of people. They're the same. They're out and about working outside, most of them, or a lot of sort of tradesmen and women, or people who run their own businesses and things like that. There's a lot of self-employed people. And they're grafters basically, and you come across the same sorts of people in those places. But a lot of people in Wales don't really get around much from north to south, so there's loads of people in North Wales who've never really heard of anywhere in the south apart from Cardiff, say, and there's a lot of people in the south who haven't got a clue where Corwen is or something like that, so it's quite interesting. But it's been good over the last few years to get around and travel to all these different places, because you go to places you would never go to, really, unless you were doing a job like this. So that's been fantastic. And as well, going to events that you've never even heard of, agricultural shows and little fairs and things like that. And that's where people are at their best, I think, when they're just okay, relaxing, having a few pints, but on their own turf. And that's why that's what I found the best nights to be, when people have been, like a show dance at the end of agricultural show, or a night down in the local pub when everybody's there. Those are the best nights.
Brilliant. One of the things, like you said, like, you released the Be Road Bandit last year, which was incredibly popular. So you do write some music bilingually. Do you write some stuff in English and Welsh and stuff like that? Is that a natural process to you? And just when you come up with the idea, do you think to yourself, well, I want this to be a song in Welsh, or does it is it a natural thing?
That's a good question. It is natural, because I grew up speaking English at home mostly, although I learnt Welsh in school and in Sunday school and things like that, and just around the place. But I grew up in a little place called Cwmfelin Mynach in Carmarthenshire, which is a Welsh-speaking area on the whole. But my parents are from England originally, so we were speaking English and Welsh at home. So it's not been it certainly is an issue doing stuff in English at all. But I do have some ideas. I think this is going to work better in English, like Be Road Bandit. I mean, okay, that could kind of work in Welsh, but it's got quite a ring to it, the Be Road Bandit, and I just thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. But yeah, there are some songs that you think you wouldn't be able to do them in English, like Laurie's Mansell Davies, for example. I mean, you could sing a different song about Laurie's Mance, but they're such a sort of iconic film from the Welsh countryside. People ask me quite a few times, especially like mates who either don't speak Welsh or live in England or whatever, say, yeah, that's great, but why don't you do it in English, so we can all understand. And I think they think it's quite militant that I'm deliberately not doing it in English. But what I try to explain is that actually the humor itself is Welsh, most of it. So it just naturally doesn't always work in English. Like, if you try to translate some songs, they just sound ridiculous. Even if you were really good at translating things, I don't mean literally translate. Even if you could do it like that, it's not really relevant. So yeah, I do it in whatever language is most relevant. I've had nights where it's been, most of the nights where I perform, they're sort of like, I don't know, 70, probably 80% Welsh content, and then there's a few English songs in there, and the chat just goes with whoever's in the room. But it is difficult sometimes, because you get a crowd where it's about 50-50, and it is a long night for someone who's probably potentially not particularly interested, because they don't know what you're talking about, which I don't blame them. But I've never really had a problem with it. People have never really kicked off and said, "Boo, speak English" or whatever. I mean, if they do, they could leave, couldn't they? Because vote with your feet in it if you don't like it. But I think people know what they get, what to expect when they book something like the Welsh Whisperer. It's Welsh humour, but I haven't got a problem with singing English, and I do it a few times. I do a few covers of songs like People by Seamus Moore and things like that. I do some Irish country songs and stuff like that. on a night as well. And yeah, like you said, I've recorded a couple of English songs now, and that was part of the reason I wanted to do that, is because the market is much bigger for this kind of music in Ireland, unfortunately, than it is in Wales. So, it's it kind of makes sense to push the product out there, because people are used to hearing this kind of music, and there's all sorts of reasons. There are lots of different radio stations out there that play this kind of music every day, whereas in Wales, apart from the BBC Cymru, Radio Cymru, and BBC Radio Wales, it's just most of the stations are big chart stations, and they're owned by the same company, whether it's Global or whoever. And I don't think they're really interested in grassroots Celtic country music from Wales. So I not bothered. Whereas if this was Ireland now, there would probably be like a local station for every region, and within that there'd be one that only plays country or only plays folk or whatever. So it's kind of much more set up for grassroots music out there, but we're doing what we can.
We'll have to organise a Welsh Whisper tour of Ireland, won't we, at some point?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to. I actually spoke to before all this COVID stuff kicked in. I've been using a couple of promoters out in Ireland to help push the singles out there on radio and stuff like that. And some of them were actually saying, that maybe we could introduce you into the Irish country audience through, doing a duet with somebody who's already established or something like that. And I was well up for doing that. And then this COVID kicked in, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, if we ever get the chance, it would be great. And I know it would be much. It would be quite normal out there, especially out in the country. They're just so used to hearing this music. It's mainstream. Like, for example, on BBC Ulster, right? During I think that's what they call the prime time, between 2 and 4 or 1 and 4 or something like that in the afternoon. It's country music. So it's like at the same time as when everybody else is, got their primetime slots playing probably chart music, they're playing country. So it just shows the appeal, especially in Northern Ireland. It's really strong up there.
Oh, brilliant. So do you think, talking about maybe so like you've been there for about 5-6 years or so now, do you feel that stylistically some of your music has changed or developed in different ways? And do you feel like music you've done 5 years ago is a different kind of music to what you do now? Or
yeah, it's pretty different. It's pretty different on a couple of levels, because when it started out, it was more kind of straight up musical comedy. They were quite funny, ridiculous songs, which I just did for fun, and they were getting recorded in the garage and things like that, and they're using backing tracks that had been made on keyboards and stuff. So the quality wasn't important really at that time, but they weren't. I realized then, they weren't gonna. People probably wouldn't buy them, or maybe they would, but not on a big scale, and they wouldn't get played much on the radio or the telly or things like that. And I did a few gigs in that period where people weren't sure what to make of me, like, was I serious or was I completely taking the mick or what? But I realized then after that, okay, if I want to kind of muscle in on this and get music on the radio and on telly and maybe get people to actually book me regularly to play, I'll have to improve the quality of the recordings to start. So I started working with different people then who could improve the recording and the production and things like that. But also then they kind of shifted a bit more to this country sound, probably after a couple of years. I think right at the start it was more kind of folky based, even though this was all backing track days. So I would borrow songs like Whiskey in the Jar and change the words and things like that. And there's a first album that's full of songs like that. They're traditional Irish and Scottish songs, change the words. But I started, I sort of shifted more towards a country sound then, probably must have been like 2016 or something like that, when the album Dino Cwm Felyn Mynach came out with Lawrence Mansell Davis and Ni'n Beilo Nawr. So I say country, but what I would call Celtic country, with the accordion, but also with the guitar licks as well. I think it works really well because people, when I sing those songs, say if I'm in like Aberystwyth show or something like that, you see people walking past and they just kind of get into it because it suits the surroundings. Because if they're in a field and maybe they've had a couple of pints or they're having, it's just a nice day out, and this kind of easygoing Celtic country music, I see it. People enjoy it, and most people anyway. The people who are there, maybe not all of them, but you do see it. And when you do gigs, you can tell when people enjoy it. And some of the best nights I've ever done have been in the most obscure places. I did one in a place called Sarn Melldeirn, right down in Penllyn. It's a little village, and there's just one. Oh, actually, there's two pubs there, but we were in this one pub, and this is absolutely wild. Like, people obviously drinking loads, but so up for it that as a performer, it's just amazing. So they just couldn't get enough. They want more, and they want you to go on all night, and you can't, but you try. And also nights like some of the young farmers' nights in big sheds where nobody really knows about these nights, but there might be 600-700 people there. There's a big crowd for Welsh audiences. That's big because normally you might be playing to 50 or 100 people, which would be a good night in a small rural hall or something like that. But other times you turn up and it's 500, 600, 700, big crowds. So those nights are crazy. But there's definitely something in it that I think the rural Welsh crowd hasn't really heard before. So yeah, it's good. So far, so good.
The mention of sort of touring and things like that, what has been your sort of most weird or interesting story you've had whilst sort of on tour around Wales or anywhere really?
Yeah, lots of strange things happen. Like, I'm talking about the good nights. There are some bad nights as well, So I have turned up to some places where it's all gone wrong, and it could be down to me. There's a lot of pinging going on here. I don't know what's going on here, but it could be down to me, or it could be down to maybe somebody, the night hasn't been advertised very well, or the booking, something's gone wrong either way, and you turn up and you think, right, there's only about 4 people here, and the doors are, they're supposed to be, they've been open for half an hour, the thing's supposed to, and you're like, oh my God. Sometimes that happens, and people just pile in the last minute, and you think, oh, thank God for that. But unfortunately, it doesn't always. So I've had some shockers like that. And it's a long night then. You're doing 2 sets of 45 minutes sometimes in front of, 4 people, maybe like 10 people or something like that, but it's just the same. It's terrible. So there's been a few of them, and there's been a few where I've been quite late as well, where I've been not been able to find the place. And if I've been playing in a really rural location and people are panicking, the phone's ringing, and you're like, oh my God. And because it's quite DIY, this world, sometimes you turn up to shows and you're setting up your own PAs and stuff like that. So the bigger ones, there's a stage and PA there normally, but it's not all glamour. Normally you're banging in there on your own, setting up, and if you're late, people are, they're either drunk or they're bored and they want to go home, and it's like, oh my God. And another one, sometimes you play, say if you're playing like a village hall or a rugby club, where it's not so, well, more like a village hall, right, where it's not so rowdy. And you might have, some respectable people sat in the front row, and they're thinking, oh, this is too loud, and they sat there and they're not enjoying themselves at all. And I'm thinking, why did you come? It happens. You see people. It's funny, actually, right? It's an interesting difference I found between Northwest Wales and Southwest Wales. In more in the Southwest, right, people will buy a ticket to an event to support it, but they might not go. So they might buy a ticket and then say, oh, I've done my bit now. I've given a fiver to the whatever it is, but I'm not going. And that's terrible, because you turn up and they say, oh, we sold out, boys, or we sold 200 tickets. It's brilliant. It's going to be a hell of a night. There might be 60 people there or something like that. I mean, it doesn't happen that often, but it has happened to me a few times. I thought, oh my God, say if it's bad weather or something like that, people just don't turn up. Whereas in the Northwest, I find more, if people don't want to go, they just won't buy a ticket, which, if I'm kind of with them on that one, I understand. But that's happened a few times to me, where I've thought this is going to be a hell of a night, and it hasn't been. But that's all doom and gloom. There's been plenty of good nights, more good nights than bad nights. Otherwise, I would have stopped doing it a long time ago. But yeah, trying to think of some funny, stupid stuff that's happened. I've fallen over a couple of times. Like, I've tripped over a guitar once. I was doing a show at a place called Krieg Mawr Festival in Cardigan, just outside. That was a good festival. It's stopped now. But that was one of the first sort of gigs I did. There was anything like a headline slot. I don't think it was actually a headline, but it was quite late on for me at that time. And there was a big crowd there, and people had been enjoying themselves all day. And I was like tripping over. I was quite nervous. I think it went down all right. People said they enjoyed it, but I was tripping over the guitar, and I knocked the guitar over in the middle of the set. And I was like, oh god. I think that, well, maybe they thought I was joking, but no, I wasn't. And I used to do stupid things in those days as well, like just say yes to every gig. So I still say yes to most gigs, but I mean, logistically, you got to plan them out a bit geographically. So that night when I was in Cardigan, I was doing a festival in Amlwch, which is like right at the top of Anglesey, which is so far away. The next day at 3 o'clock or something like that. So I realized then those are the nights when you sleep in the car, and then you're in the car for 4 hours, and it was like, next time I'm going to plan this out a bit better. So that was part of the learning curve. Was sometimes you have to say, look, I literally cannot be there on that day because I'm 200 miles away or 100 miles away the day before. You just can't do it. But it's nice to be asked, but you got to try, and you got to look after yourself as well. Otherwise, don't want to burn out. I have that. People warn me about that all the time. Don't burn out. Well, I've had plenty of rest now. I've had about a year off, so I'm ready.
You get it, I guess, like we get it on our end when we first started doing just bits and pieces. People would ask for things, could you come and film this? Could you come and take part of this? You say yes, but then you realize that, you've got absolutely no time, or, people expect stuff so quickly from you. Like I'm still editing something that I started like 2 months ago. So it can be difficult.
People don't always understand the process, the work that goes in behind the scenes, so you guys will have plenty. It takes you a long time maybe to get things together, and people just expect it to happen overnight. It's the same thing with me. People do expect you to just move somewhere at the drop of the hat. Like the television industry is quite like that. So they'll say, can you be in so-and-so, next week at 4 o'clock? And you think, oh my God, okay, I'll try. Well, it's like, you better be there. Otherwise we're going to get someone else. And then you think, oh my God, I better be there, because it's cutthroat really. It's quite tough actually. Even the Welsh television industry, which people think, oh, it's tiny, it's actually, it operates the same as the other industries. You've got to be there, and you've got to take your chances, otherwise might not ring you again.
So on the mention of television, you've been on a couple of programs recently, haven't you? You were on Health of Trust recently, and I believe you've got a program starting soon, haven't you, or coming on soon?
Yeah.
How has that been for you? Like, how was that experience of going from maybe doing music to now maybe being more of a presenter and in front of the camera?
Yeah, the TV stuff came. I started doing it a bit more regularly. I don't do it full time or anything. I just do it whenever I get asked to do it, But we filmed a couple of series last year, just in between the lockdowns, which was quite hectic. But the Helfa Drysor is a treasure hunt program, so I was presenting that, and then we got a commission also for a Welsh Whisperer program, which is great. Well, it was supposed to be traveling around villages and speaking to a lot of the local characters, and then having a big sing song in the pub after. But we couldn't do the sing song in the pub because of coronavirus, unfortunately. So we had to do it in a field with a Ivor Williams trailer and loads of bales. It was quite good, but it wasn't as good. But it's a good show. That's coming out in the next few months now on S4C. But yeah, I enjoy it. I don't know whose idea it was really to put the Welsh Whisperer, in front of a camera like that. But I definitely took the chance when I got it. I did a little bit of TV at the start, like before Hansh came out, there was a program called Y Lle, which was like it was kind of aimed at young people on late at night. I did a little interview on there right at the start, and then I did a few items for them. And then obviously stuff like Heno and stuff every now and again would go on there. And that was really the start of it, when they said, they asked me if I wanted to present an item called Pub of the Week, which I thought that was amazing. Yes, definitely. So we would do it in 6 or 8 week blocks, I think, go to a different pub every week, and people would nominate their local. So that was great. So we didn't have to say, oh, can we please come and film in your pub? And then we'll fill it with fake people so we can pretend that it's a busy pub. And it was none of that. So we said, people have got to nominate their local, and then all the locals would turn up. And we used to film them on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night, and it was great. That was another excuse to go to the pub and go to some great pubs up and down Wales, which, again, a lot of them I'd passed many times. I thought, that looks like a nice boozer. And then you finally get to go in there, and they got a little tankard. But that was probably the first kind of presenting gig that I ever got. And then off the back of that, really, we got the TV series. So we'll see how far it goes. But it all depends what the viewers think, really. So, you know, if S4C get loads of complaints or bad ratings, then I guess that'll be the end of that. But hopefully they'll enjoy it. But I've included a lot of the music in the shows as well. So in the pub of the week, we'd always finish the show, well, this sort of item with a Welsh Whisperer song, and then with the Welsh Whisperer series, it's full of we've done some music videos and stuff as well. So yeah, looking forward to getting it out there. But I certainly enjoy it. It's a different kind of work. It's not as much kind of adrenaline buzz as performing to a big crowd, but that doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. It is fun, and at the end of the day, you know, you're working hard on something you enjoy, so it's kind of not like work when you enjoy it that much. So yeah, it's all good.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, I think maybe about 2 years ago, so now, you started sort of your own sort of record thing, didn't you, with Hamborn Records. So what was your reason behind doing that?
Yeah, so when I started out, just putting stuff on YouTube and Facebook, a guy called Griff Meredith, who was also, I think in the 90s, he was a Welsh hip hop artist called MC Mabon, who's great. People are surprised, you know, what's he got to do with me, collaborating with me? But he ran a label, or he still does run a label called Taro D, and he's published many artists over the years, and he caught wind of this Welsh Whisperer character and thought maybe there was something in it, so fair play to him. And he got in touch with me and said, listen, do you want to record a selection of songs and put them on CD and release them as well on Spotify and iTunes and all that? And I said, you must be joking. No one's going to want to buy this. And he said, well, you know, you never know. Give it a go. It's an interesting. He was really ambitious, actually, because when I was just starting out, I'd probably only done about 2 gigs. He was writing letters to TV companies saying, you know, let's do a show, an evening with the Welsh Whisperer. They must have been like, who the hell's the Welsh Whisperer? But, you know, fair play. He was pushing it. I would never have thought of even doing that. You know what I mean? And also in those early days, Griff was, he's quite a legal nut. He knows a lot about the legalities of covering songs and publishing other people's music and changing words. And it's quite a complex world. And also like royalties and stuff like that. It's quite a complex world if you don't know what you're talking about. So we changed the words to a Peter Andre song. What's that? Mysterious Girl. We changed the words to a Caribbee Cymraeg, talking about Anglesey being like a paradise island. Now, I had no idea that you needed legal permission to do that, because obviously whoever owned the rights to the song. But Griff helped me through all that, and we actually got contracts where Peter Andre is representative. So I was working with the big dogs from the early days. But yeah, no, so things like that was all good with Griff. And then a couple of years later, a record company called Flach got involved. Now, Flach are a bit bigger than Taro D, and they've got quite a big archive. They've released a lot of music, especially from Southwest Wales. And fair play, those boys were looking for someone new to record. And it's quite a coincidence, actually. They are good friends with Marky G, who presents on Saturday nights on Radio Cymru. And they asked Marky G, listen, do you know anyone at the moment who's sort of up and coming who might be good for us to do an album with? And Marky G said, well, I'll tell you who I'm getting a lot of requests for now is a guy called Welsh Whisperer. And they said, oh, right, who's this then? They didn't really know who I was. And then I got a phone call then saying, hi, it's Rich here from Flach. Do you want to talk about doing an album, like in a studio with a proper band, not just licensing backing tracks from all over the world? I thought, now that sounds good. That's a step up, you know? So, but I didn't want to let Griff down either, because Griff had worked hard with me from the start. So we got to a point where the first 2 albums after the original one were, so the second and third album were released on Flach and Taro D together. So they worked together on that one. And that was great, going into the studio in Flach and working with some great musicians. Like we had a guy called Brian Organ on there, who's a crazy accordion player. And if you Google him on YouTube, he's got some funny videos. He's gone viral with a video when he's swearing at the TV when Wales scored a try. Went viral a few years ago before things went viral. Check it out. Brian Organ. As Brian with a Y, by the way. And then... So, yeah, that was good. And I met a guy called Lee Mason then, who produces a lot of music for Flach. And he now is kind of like the main man producing Welsh Whisperer music. So I work with him very closely. But to answer your question, a couple of years ago then, yeah, I set up my own label called Hambon Records for a couple of reasons. Nothing bad happened with Flach or Tarady. There was no dispute or anything. But I wanted to be able to move faster and do things, straight away without having to go through other people and have basically, have to ask permission for certain things and say, oh, can I spend this much on this? Can we do this? Can I sing this song? I just wanted to go. I just thought, it could be a very short career. Totally could be a very short career. It could be over any time. So, I wanted to get going with it. And that was the main reason why I set it up. But also now I can release music for other people as well. So I have released a few things. The songs that Howell Pitts and myself have sung on Hanch, we've released those. And I've done some stuff with a band called Booker from Aberystwyth area. And, and a guy called Sean Rich up here, he sings some Americana music called Crowia. So I've really helped out a few people and released some stuff like that. Not that they're similar to Welsh Whisperer in any way, but just helping them out on that front. And it's another, source of income for the self-employed entertainer as well.
Fantastic. I think you mentioned earlier on that question that you were talking about sort of developing as a character. Do you see the Welsh Whisperer as a character or an extension of yourself, or how does that play? When does the Welsh Whisperer end and the person behind that begin? Yeah,
a lot of people ask that. It's a very fine line. If you ask Mrs. Whisperer, she will tell you it's a very fine line. Because at the start, especially, people thought I must have had a background in acting or something like that, which I absolutely do not, by the way. People thought I must have, oh, wow, where did you, not where did you study, but like, how did you come up with this amazing creation? I was like, it's a bit of a creation, but it's kind of like just me, but plus a bit more. So, a lot of it comes from just, upbringing. Like, I was brought up in a rural area and I went to school, which was full of like either townies or Hambons. So, what the drill. And I started writing these songs and some of them are exaggerated, obviously, but it's just entertainment, isn't it? And on the nights when I turn up, I started out wearing like, if you Google Welsh Whisperer, right, there's some older pictures. I started out wearing a tweed jacket. I still got it, but I used to get boiling in that jacket. I used to be sweating so much. And I thought, because it was a bit tight around the armpits, and I thought this has got to stop. I couldn't do it, but I was starting out as a sort of bit of a country gentleman type look. Well, not kind of like country gentleman / Welsh hill farmer, not posh, but that kind of vibe. But I changed the look then after a couple of years, and I got the rigger boots and the braces. The hat has remained. I'm still wearing. This is the original Welsh Whisperer hat. But yeah, I got the rigger boots on. I'll tell you why. I noticed right at the start, the people who were turning up to my gigs, I would say, was like a traditional, like Noson Lawen crowd. It was, no offense to Noson Lawen, but it was an older crowd, and it was a sort of chapel-going crowd. It was an older, vintage crowd. But then after a couple of years, I was doing a gig in a place called the King's Arms, I think, in Llandysul, and I noticed that people were turning up in high-vis and stuff like that, not fancy dress, just clocked off work. So of like builders, plumbers, I don't know, people who work on the roads or whatever. And I thought, okay, so you're appealing to a different audience now, as well as you still got a few grannies and granddads coming as well. But you got people clocking off work and having a few pints. I thought, right, that's interesting. And then within that following year, I noticed loads of kids starting getting involved. Like when Neen Baylor now came out and stuff, kids were singing it. And schools were sending me messages saying, oh, these kids are obsessed with your music. And I thought, wow, I never planned to do that, I never wanted to be. I actually, Richie Kavanagh, they've got rude songs, like they're quite saucy. You wouldn't probably sing those to kids. I actually thought I would go more down that road. Like I did once, I've sung a song about Viagra and stuff like that. But I don't really do it much now because there's kids, you're going to upset someone, unfortunately. But I don't know. I think it's an island. They're just more relaxed and not bothered. But I don't think that would go down too well somehow. But there are some saucy songs out there. But if I'm doing a night with an older crowd, like adults only, then there's no problem. But yeah, I noticed that kids were getting involved, but the good thing about that is when you play in a village hall, if the kids want to go, then the mum and dads are going to come, and then you've got people clocking off work, and then granny and granddad are coming as well, and before you know, it's a full house. And obviously, in terms of financially, that's much better because you get a lot more people through the door. You're going to sell a lot more merchandise, and the whole thing became a lot more viable to be able to do it full time.
Brilliant. I remember when we spoke to David Ewan about 2 years ago, we were talking about some of his music and stuff, and he mentioned the fact that when they started doing music live and like the Eisteddfod and stuff, there was a lot of that. He said that like Nos on Lawen sort of crowd, and how they try to shake up the scene, and it's quite weird when you think that like people like David Ewan have now become that crowd. That's like Nos on Lawen crowd.
They were, obviously when David was talking about, what would he be talking about, the 60s there maybe or something? And so that is extremely, even more so back then. People might have been like, rebelling against the television and stuff like that. I don't know, in those days. So it's a bit different now. But you do get those people still, and you don't knock them because they enjoy the night. That's another thing I learned, right? I've done gigs where I've seen a few rows full of people and thought, why have these people come? Because they're staring at me. They look like they just want me to disappear. But at the end of the night, they come up to me and say, that was fantastic. I enjoyed it so much. I said, oh my God, I don't want to see you when you don't enjoy. But it's just their way of appreciating. I learned that don't knock it. It's just their way of appreciating. It is old fashioned. It's you sit back and you enjoy. You just watch and listen. That's it. But to the performer, obviously, you'd much prefer if they were laughing or dancing or clapping or something. But yeah, that's just the crowd. That's a section of the crowd that you have in Wales. But at the end of the day, you got to be glad they turned up, because it's not easy for promoters and people who put on gigs and festivals, and they put a lot of time and effort, and often not for profit, So it's quite amateur in Wales in that sense. A lot of the gigs get put on there. Probably a high percentage of them is raising money for charity or for some cause, which is good. But, it relies on a lot of voluntary time and effort. So fair play, they haven't got to do it. So it's different when you do a gig where somebody's getting a percentage on the door and you think, well, fair play, he's working hard, but he's getting paid for it. So that's all right. But it's a tricky one. So you can't knock people who turn up and sit in a freezing cold village hall on a Thursday night. Fair play to it.
You see a lot, don't you? I think, speaking to people, that how a lot of the behind the scenes stuff is just from passionate sort of people who are doing it in their own time, because if they don't do it, it doesn't get done. You see that in Wales.
100%, 100%. And even like I did a gig, it was probably a couple of years ago now, because I didn't do anything really last year, but in Trawsfynydd, really good old-fashioned hall, absolutely packed though, bring your own booze, the best nights, really good crowd, mixture of young and older. But a lot of the people who set up the hall, who put the massive flag up, set up the lights, were in there before, putting the heating on, arranging the tables. None of those guys are getting paid. I was getting paid to turn up there and sing for a couple of hours, and that's fine. But fair play to the people who set up the whole show and have been working for weeks, maybe months before, selling tickets to make sure it's easy for me to turn up and just, hey, and have a good time with a couple of hundred people. But, you got to credit where credit's due. The people are grafted behind the scenes. Fair play.
Fantastic. So on the mention of touring and stuff like that, obviously, we've been locked down now for about a year. How has that sort of impacted on you as a sort of a musician, and how do you still try and keep those sort of creativity going, or how do you still record stuff in a pandemic?
Yeah, it is a bit rough. Normally, I was talking to someone about this the other day. Normally, for me, and there's a few others in the Welsh sort of music scene that would be similar. Gwilym Bowen Rees would be similar. He gigs a lot. Normally, in the last couple of years, has been between sort of 60 and 80 gigs a year, which is quite a lot in the Welsh world. Anyway, there's not many people, I don't think, that do that. Probably just a handful. But then to drop that down to last year, I think I did 7 gigs last year up until about February or March, and then everything dropped. Okay, there's been a couple of gimmick home gigs and live streams, which is all good, but it's been nothing like normal. So there's pros and cons. It's been it's been tougher financially, obviously, because you're losing out on loads of work. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it'll be all right as long as the Eisteddfod's on, or as long as the Royal Welsh is on, or as long as the big agricultural shows are on. It'll be fine. There'll be plenty of shows, and also not just for the musicians and the entertainers, but a lot of technical staff, camera people, sound people, runners, loads of people that work, people who build the festivals and all this stuff. All those people have been out of work, so it's been tough like that. But yeah, I mean, you're so used to it. I was so used to going out a couple of times a week somewhere around the country, and okay, it's hard sometimes, and it's you're spending a lot of time on your own in the van, and it's late nights back home, and you're thinking, oh god, I know. It's rough, bit of a rough life sometimes when there's no service stations open, especially the kind of places that I play. On the way home, there's nothing open. You wouldn't, so there's a lot of pit stops in the middle of nowhere, all that kind of thing. So yeah, but I had to do something, so that's why I thought, right, I'm going to spend a bit of time now on a couple of singles through this, because I didn't expect it to last as long as it did. I thought this will get me through, a couple of weeks. But yeah, so I recorded the B Road Bandit at home. I recorded the vocals at home, which I wouldn't normally do in this room, actually. But I had to, Angharad, my girlfriend, was out that day, or she was working or something. So, because it's hard to do stuff like that when you got people around, and nothing personal, just like if someone's watching telly or walking around the house or flush the toilet or something, it just puts you off. So, or me anyway. But yeah, so I did that in this room, and then the music was created with Lee. He's got a home studio down in Pembrokeshire, and we used a couple of different musicians. And as well, something I hadn't done before was use these distributors out in Ireland to push it on Irish radio. So the B Road Bandit got played quite a lot in Ireland and Scotland. And also, I wanted some pro backing vocals. So instead of going down the usual avenue of asking someone who'd done them before or doing them myself, I thought, right, I want to find kind of the best people to do it in the Irish country. So I found out that there was a guy called Danny Sheerin, who I had never heard of, but he's actually like country music royalty in Ireland, I found out. So he's done the backing vocals for all of Richie Cavanagh's songs, all of Daniel O'Donnell's platinum albums and those kind of people. And he's literally done everything, apparently. He's the main man. So I got in touch with him, and I thought, oh, he won't even answer my email. He doesn't know who I am. But he said, yeah, no problem. So it worked out a fee. And I sent in the stems, and he sent back amazing backing vocals. And he said, anytime, just give me a call. So he's done the same on Grafton All the Time. And we got a guy called Kane O'Rourke to play flute on that song as well. So it's kind of opened up a few new session musicians as well. But closer to home, we had a guy called Patrick Rhymes playing. He plays in Callan folk band. He played the fiddle and the flute on some of the tracks of the last album as well. So it's been a bit of a chance to work with new people and maybe not rush through things. I have been a little bit rushed before, like when you try to block out a bit of time to say, right, I'm going to get this album sorted, but then you still get offered gigs. And when someone says, do you want to come and do this? You don't want to not do it for lots of reasons. So you go and do it. But then I got to admit, I have come to times where songs and albums have been ready to come out, and I've been like, oh my God, I don't even know the words really to these songs yet. I need some time to think about what I'm doing. So it has been one positive aspect of it has been more time to work on it. Like the last two singles, I think, have sounded pretty good. We've taken our time to get them to sound the best they can, and just hopefully we'll be able to perform them live sometime in 2021 with a full band. That's the next thing now, is get the Hambon band out on the road. That's what we're going to try and do, but could be tricky. We'll see.
Hopefully things will be sort of getting back to normal, maybe sooner rather than later, isn't it? So you mentioned like the B Road Bandit there, and I think it did quite well, didn't it? I think Bootlegger, another sort of Welsh icon, was really into it and stuff like that. But terms of like sort of reception sort of outside of Wales, do you ever get like surprised by fans in like maybe different countries or different areas being like they really like your stuff, or you know?
Yeah, well, the good thing about social media, and I'm quite lucky, I've got a good following on social media. So there are people, most of them are in Wales, but there are people all over the world. Whether they're Welsh people who have left, or just people who have discovered the music, or have got some kind of Welsh connection. But the B Road Bandit, because it got played quite a lot in Ireland and in Scotland, it actually got to, I'm sure that was a factor into it getting to number 2 in the country charts on iTunes, which I was amazed by. Because we never expect to get into the charts, really, even if you're singing in English, but Welsh artists, just because the scale of our economy is tiny compared to the kind of the big world out there. So, but I was amazed. It went up from like 57 to 25 to 10. I thought, geez, wow. And it stayed at number 2 for a bit. So it was great. Didn't quite get to number 1, but I was still amazed that it got to number 2. But yeah, definitely the fans, the name has got out there a little bit more now from the last 2 singles, particularly in Ireland, because the guy I spoke about at the start, Seamus Moore, who's a bit of an icon, really. He actually sent me a message on Facebook a couple of months ago, and I was like, wow, amazing. He sent me a message saying, hi, did you write the song Grafting All the Time, which was the last single I just put out? I said, yes. And he said, it's a mighty song. I might do my own version of it. I was, oh my God, yes. So Seamus Moore is going to cover it. He doesn't have to ask my permission to do that, but if he wants to change the words, he would have to ask. And obviously, in the song, I mentioned Llanboidi, and I say the first line is, I am a happy Welshman. So he just wanted to tweak that. So I was totally up for it. And that's coming out now in the next couple of months. I haven't heard it yet. I've been badgering him to show it to me, but he hasn't done it. But he said it's coming out, and he's one of the big dogs of Irish country. This kind of music, this Irish country comedy. His nickname is the JCB Man. If anyone hasn't heard of him, they should check him out. Back in the day when he's a bit older now, he's like, I don't know how old he is now, maybe 60 something, 70 maybe. But when he was sort of like in the 90s, he was selling serious numbers, and this is one of the people who sold 40,000, 50,000 records, and all the songs have been about goats and sheep and pigs and chickens and crazy stuff like that, just stupid rural entertainment. So it's inspiration really to think that someone can actually make a living out of that. And you did actually ask me at the start, didn't you, who about inspirations, and kids actually ask me who has inspired me. And I do say not just these Irish country singers, but people like David Iwan, like you mentioned, okay? People like Bryn Vaughan, John Allen, and the reason, I like the music, but also they have been able to sustain a solid livelihood in Welsh entertainment for such a long time. Most other people have dipped off, either because by choice, some of them, fair play, it's hard when you get a bit older, or you want to, your family grows and the lifestyle doesn't match. I get it. But fair play to them, they've stuck at it all the way. And I think more artists, that's easy for me to say this, but more artists could have done that. But there's only a handful really that have been pulling crowds since the 80s, and they're still pulling crowds now, so that's awesome. So that's what you're trying to do. And we'll see, maybe when I'm 75, maybe there'll still be punters, will still be coming in. Who knows?
Be quite nice, wouldn't it? So I think I got 2 more questions, I think. Yeah, so we mentioned, this is sort of a topic I just thought off the top of my head then, just mentioned bootlegger and sort of that sort of his weird fascination with B Road Bandit over like a couple of weeks last summer and stuff. And now you've both gone into the beer sense of having your own beers. How did that come around?
Yeah, that's another mad thing that happened just because of lockdown, really. So bootlegger, I saw the bootlegger probably the same time you did, when he just popped up on Twitter, and I just noticed him and thought, this guy's hilarious. And I didn't actually know him at all, personally. I've spoken to him a few times on the phone, but only since we got to know each other a bit better. But yeah, he put a video up with his friend Irish Marty, is it? And they were blaring the B Road Bandit while he was doing the extension, where he filmed so many of his videos. And And that was good publicity, you know, because that was the time when the song had just come out. So that probably contributed to the chart success as well. But it was good. It was good to be noticed. And he's got, you know, however many 100,000 followers. So it's all good to be tagged by him and stuff like that. And he's got his own beer. When the bootlegger beer came out, I thought that's absolutely amazing. It's great for Wrexham lager. It's great for Wrexham football. And it's great for Wales. He's a great guy because he's a very regular, you know, guy. He's nothing fancy, doesn't want to be, doesn't pretend to be. He's just an all-round normal bloke. So that's the kind of people you want to represent, you know, Wales, really. You know, there's a lot of people like that who just work hard, party hard. So I was a big fan of him, and I've drunk the beer. It's very nice. And I put a picture up then. You know, I didn't see it and go, I want that. But months later, I put a picture up of me in a pub, in the Queen's pub in Carmarthen. My girlfriend's got a nice phone, and she took a picture, and it was a good quality picture of me in the pub. So I put it on Facebook saying, oh, it would be good to have a Welsh Whisperer beer. That's all we need now is a brewery. And I was sort of joking. I wasn't serious, really. And then a company in Pembrokeshire called Bluestone Brewery got in touch with me and said, hey, listen, we'd be interested to talk. And I thought, oh, wow. And then another brewery in Bethesda, in Gwynedd, said, oh, we want to do an IPA as well. And I thought, oh, wow. I don't want to turn anyone down, but I can't have two Welsh Whisperer beers out at the same time. So what I'll do is I'll do a lager with Bluestone, and I'll do an IPA with these guys in Bethesda. And the good thing, lager, which is kind of like the main one, because Bluestone are slightly a bigger brewery. They're still small. They're still a small company, but they're slightly bigger than Cwrw Ogwen up in Bethesda. So it's a bit more local. The IPA is a bit more local around Northwest Wales. But the good thing is, the good thing Celtic Lager has sold much better across the country because they're just logistics. They're a bit more set up. But yeah, so now I got my own beer, and people say, "Oh, wow, Welsh Whisperer, how did you get your own beer?" Well, it just kind of happened. I said I wouldn't mind having a beer, and a brewery was, you know, Bluestone must have been looking for a new beer, and they were confident that it would work. And my friend who designs all my stuff, he designs like the bumper stickers and business cards and t-shirts, caps. He does all that. He's been out in Thailand this whole time through COVID. He went out there before. He's still there. I don't know what he's doing. He's just partying hard. I don't know. I think the attitude is a bit different in Thailand. I'm not sure what the COVID rates are saying, but I have no idea. But he's out there anyway. And he designed the beer in Thailand. So he was sending me whatever the time difference is, he was sending me the stuff, and then I'd wake up and the new designs would be there. Then I'd say, oh, can you change this? And then I'd have to wait like 24 hours, and then he'd send it back to me. But we got there in the end. And yeah, they're selling really well, and they're doing another brew now. Both beers are getting a second brew. So that's something I wanted to continue, because I knew it would be a bit of a Christmas gimmick. You know, people would buy a box or a couple of bottles for their friends or whatever. But we're hopefully going to get them into more pubs and shops now. And when pubs can open, get it on tap as well. So we'll get the good thing lager on tap. But yeah, that is great novelty and great bit of fun, and tastes good as well. I got to say, tastes good.
It's okay. We're allowed to do promotions on your side.
Oh, thank God for that.
I think sort of our last question, sort of wrapping up then, is, you mentioned there you want to make that sort of a long-term thing. What are your future plans, and maybe short or long term? What's some goals you'd really like to achieve in the next couple of years for, music and stuff?
Short term is definitely do a gig. Short term definitely is do a few shows with the band, bigger gigs, because I always found that when I was playing a little pub or a little hall, I enjoyed it on my own, and it wouldn't be financially viable to have a full 5 or 6 piece band in a place that holds 50 people. You know, it's not going to work. But the bigger shows, and there could be 10 or 20 or maybe more of these in a year, where the stage is absolutely massive, the place is banging, and I'm there on my own with a guitar, and it's like, I could do with a full band here, and the show can be much more versatile as well. You can do some covers as well, and you can play along with the crowd a bit more, and it's a bit more impressive for people as well. They can see, someone doing an accordion solo, guitar solo, drum solo. It's kind of more of a show. So I definitely want to do some more shows with a band. We actually, I don't know how ambitious this is, but I think we want to try. Well, I think, well, I do know. I want to try and do a live album. So I don't know. Maybe we could do that in 2021. Depends how this all goes. If we can get together and rehearse and stuff. But to record an album, maybe in somewhere like Studio Sign or something like that, just because it's a really good studio and it's a big room. And a lot of the greats have recorded there as well. You know, David Iwan, well, or most of the biggest, not all of them, but most of the biggest Welsh language artists, you know, have recorded there. So it's a pretty special place. And if anyone ever gets a chance to go there, they should go. You know, there's gold discs from all the people like David Iwan and Plethin and Hogyn with Bryn Vaughan, the big, from all the different phases of Welsh entertainment. You know, it's great to see. There's a lot of history there, so it's good to go there and do a live, do a live album. That would be pretty good. But longer term, I think just to be able to, hopefully, in years to come, you know, we'll still be able to tour and perform. And like David Iwan is there sitting there now, and he goes to the gigs, and the people who used to come and see him still come, but so do their kids and so do their grandkids. You know, hopefully that, I'm sure that's a nice feeling. So we'll see. Maybe the Welsh Whisperer will still be here, but then, you know, he could be gone next year. You just know, you could come back and people just lose interest. It's really, you know, at the moment things are flying high, and I've been surprised how well it's gone. You know, because at the start you literally, you think, you do a gig and you think, you know, it doesn't matter and no one turns up, it's only a bit of fun. But then you do it for about 6 months, a year and a half, and think, okay, well, okay, I'll carry on, but I'm still not that bothered. But after you do it for a couple of years, you think, okay, well, it can't be that bad. Or, you know, if literally everybody thought this was rubbish, then nobody would come. So I've always said, you know, as long as people are turning up and, you know, subscribing to the whole thing, then keep going. Keep it going till the cows come home. That's what I say.
Fantastic. So yeah, I think that's all my questions. Have you got any last closing words? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to promote or sell to us?
Well, yeah, everything's always for sale. Welshwhisperer.com. Yeah, it's all on there. No, it's good. It's good to do something like this as well, to get out to a slightly different audience, because especially, you know, I'm mostly known as a Welsh language artist, but it is good to do things in English as well, and it's not a big deal at all. Some people, you know, would say they were uncomfortable doing it, but I'm not one of those people. You know, it's good to open the place up. A lot of the gigs that I do, they're what I call chips and rice. You know, half and half crowd, and you don't want to bow either way. You know, you're not gonna only do stuff in English just because there's someone there who doesn't understand Welsh, but also you want to give entertainment to everyone in the room. So open it up, yeah. So it's no problem. So thanks for the invitation. It's good to do it.
That's absolutely no problem. So yeah, thank you very much, and I hope we will see you on the road soon.
Definitely. See you there on the B roads.
Yes, thank you.